No overtime, no problem. Been working at this job for some years when I got a new manager. A month or so into her working there, she came into my office and told me I wasn't allowed to work overtime anymore, and if I have any issues, we can discuss it. The way she said it sounded like she was expecting this to really hurt me. I sent an email to confirm the conversation we had, and her response basically said, "Correct. No more time theft." Quote, "I didn't really like that accusation. I usually stayed a little late by 30 minutes at most to finish up projects. A lot of projects come in last minute, and other managers were thankful for my help. So I quit staying to finish projects and wouldn't start a new one if there wasn't enough time. No real issues, but some projects started falling through the cracks. I let the other managers know. My manager told me no more overtime, and I'm just following orders." Fast forward barely a month later. As I'm leaving for the day, she rushes to me asking if I can work on, you guessed it, a last-minute project. It's potentially worth millions. I explained how I've got plans and I'm not about to be a thief. Next day was too quiet. In the afternoon, I get a request to have a meeting with my manager and HR. Usually you get a written complaint beforehand, so I'm still a little off guard. I could at least be a little prepared. At the meeting, my manager reads off grievances like it's an intervention. She frames it like I have antisocial behavioral issues, insubordinate, and I don't go the extra mile. If you let her keep going, I wouldn't be surprised if I was somehow to blame for the company not reaching its goals. When she finally finished, she had to have started writing that the night before and into the next day. I asked if it's okay if I had my say. I pointed out a lot was just her opinion and I'm overall well liked. I always do exactly what she says. However, my manager likes to constantly move projects around while I'm working on them, and I'm not allowed overtime. She denies ever saying this, so I forward the email to HR. My manager then starts backtracking. She didn't mean it permanently. HR takes me off the call a bit. When they come back, it's just HR, and I start by saying I'm not signing anything. They tell me let's agree to disagree. This has been one big miscommunication, and they appreciate all the work I do. I asked to confirm if this was going to be held against me in any way, and they said no. They went on to say if I can stay late sometimes. Great, but it's also okay that I leave after my 8 hours. My manager later quit in less than a year. I would like to file a formal harassment complaint. And I want you as a witness that my manager lied about having a no overtime policy. I got approached by another team to help with a server problem. He said my manager told him they were not available, so I could not get approval for OT. It was already 10 p.m. So I checked to make things were okay and wad gonna call it a night if the server came up okay. However, the database was missing on reboot and had to do a restore. 2 a.m. I drop off. About 4 hours OT. Big project. Third party was coming in on SAT to help, and they needed this server, so I thought they would understand. Nope. Got an earful from my manager. No OT, and I should have called her first. I made the mistake of thinking my colleague was correct, but they could have answered. I was not even gonna report it, but she found out. Next week we had a big meeting, and the manager in charge of the project shakes my hand and thanked me for saving their project. He said it was exactly the type of thing he liked to see. Other departments helping out and not staying in their silos. I told him I was surprised to hear it, since I got nothing positive from my manager. CIO heard me say that, and said, call me. Long story short, I now silence Teams and do not read email after hours now. Otherwise, I would have to record overtime. Cannot have that. I worked for a company where overtime went in predictable cycles. We'd normally just do it if required. to cover project emergencies, deployments, last-minute rushes. Management largely trusted us to just get on with it. Then every so often some exec would have kittens about the IT overtime bill and issue an OT ban. We'd shrug and accept it. Projects would start being later and emergencies took longer to fix, and we'd explain why until eventually they'd quietly rescind the ban for us. I worked there for years and went through this many times. One time a particularly clueless exec actually even banned OT for implementations, go-lives. No out-of-hours planned work permitted, full stop. We and our management tried to diplomatically point out the obvious implications of that, but he wasn't interested. That changed rather rapidly over the following couple of weeks as his peers overseeing various parts of the business became seriously unhappy about various production systems being brought down for change work during the working day instead of out of hours. I learned very quickly after becoming a manager not to make hasty decisions. I damn near fired a guy a month into being a senior manager for being way too aloof and dismissive when I would ask him for some basic information. Turns out those were his orders from the consulting firm he was from, and literally the only reason I delivered on the major program I was tasked with was him. All he and I needed were a few weeks of working together to get on the same page, and we were like a well-oiled machine after that. I guess the point is, hasty decisions into a new role and especially accusatory notes aren't going to get you far in life. You serve the team, not the other way around. If OT is a concern, sit there and find out why OT is happening and try solve those issues instead of just saying, no more OT, and calling it time theft. I was once told that I would not be allowed overtime after a minor mistake. I replied that that would be a great idea since I was getting a bit burnt out from working 6 days a week. I went to 5 days a week, worked my hours and took my breaks. Several months later, a junior manager asked if I could do overtime. I told her that I was ordered not to do overtime. She came back and informed me that I was no longer denied overtime. From that day on, I only did overtime if I needed to finish a process or if it was a rush job. Rule number 1 as a manager. If somebody asked you to confirm something in an email, it's going to be used to burn you later on because you've screwed up. Rule number 0 is don't be a jerk, but some managers can't help it. I asked to confirm if this was going to be held against me in any way and they said no. Please hold it against my manager. Here's a note to put on their file and I'll expect to see them tomorrow to hear their apology. Good CYA there, getting it in writing. Good on you, op. Some bosses have no idea the true impact a subordinate may have but just like to show who's in charge. I was a manager beneath a micromanaging, psycho, gaslighting, liar of a director that had mood swings on the daily. I was working 60+ hours a week trying to stay ahead of all the problems she created because she wouldn't listen. One of the last straws was being summoned to a meeting where I was written up for not completing a couple tasks that she assigned months ago. No mention of how much work I had done, how much of her work I had done, nor any mention of how much money I'd saved our department. I just sat there kinda dumbfounded by it all. And then I hatched a plan. I took a voluntary demotion all the way to the bottom of our department, which was the furthest I could be away from her. 6 weeks later, without me covering for her sorry ass, she was terminated. I'm still here and have worked my way back up the chain a bit. But they can keep the manager's role to themselves. Admittedly, my confidence was shaken for a bit. But my wife put it in perspective when she reminded me that I have always gotten rave reviews, offered promotions, and have never had my integrity questioned until that one bitch became my boss. Good job. Why you always get things in writing. No overtime, no problem equals no pay, no work. Smart thinking. Getting that conversation confirmed in email. My boss is like this, so I may start doing this. Manager. No more overtime. Op. Don't threaten me with a good time. HR. Why don't you contribute more? Op. Manager told me no more overtime. Manager. Not like that. I would have asked for an in-person apology. Witnessed by hour. That's a quick way to figure out how much you are valued and if you are working for a reputable company. If they don't value the workforce and only value management, you have the answer. Always put everything in writing. Stories like this make me irrationally angry. After so many years working for no overtime companies, I am now working for a company that has an attitude of, make sure the work is done but don't burn yourself out. So here I am, with no life outside of work, working 14-hour days, 6 days a week, almost able to finally buy a house. I would have involved HR right after time theft was mentioned. That's serious stuff. Let's agree to disagree. No, never. If I don't agree, I don't agree. Therefore, I can't agree to disagree. I'm angry for you because your first sentence says that you've been at that company for 5 years. Why? Are you not the manager? After 2 years, people that have been loyal need to be looked at for the management pool, and I don't understand these companies that will keep you guys pigeonholed in a low-paying job and then bring in some outside idiot like this nutcracker. I'm not sure I understand. Your manager asked you to do less work for the same pay, and you used that to undermine her to other managers. Then when she asked for your help with something you'd have previously done, you refused. Getting HR involved at this point was definitely the wrong choice for her. But it just put you back in the position you'd been before, sometimes working longer than your contracted hours. So what was the point?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.